You are listening to episode 213 of the Confident Coaches podcast, where, you know what, we're not selling cars here, but we are going to make this a December to remember. Let's go.
Welcome to the Confident Coaches podcast, a place for creating the self-confidence you need to do your best work as a life coach. If you want to bring more boldness, more resilience, and more joy to your work, this is the place for you. I'm your host, Amy Latta. Let's dive in.
Coaches, how are you? You right now listening to this. It's December 2023. How you feeling about that? I know it's kind of fun, though I can tell you right now, not a winter person in particular. I love the concept of winter, not the actual application of it, because I don't like being cold. I like being cozy. I don't like being cold, but I can be cozy when it's 100 degrees outside. That's a whole other conversation for another day. And we are going to dive in to, I want this to be a December to remember for you. And we're going to dive in what I mean by that. There's a free challenge involved. There's some mindset shifts. There's some practical tacticals involved. But before we dive in, I owe you a ginormous apology. The very long story short is, remember that Feminist Marketing Swaps podcast about 2 weeks ago? I know that you do, and I know that you do because I adamantly told you you had to run, not walk to a free download. Because in my head, on that flight to Hawaii, I completed the free download, but I didn't. I didn't remember that I didn't because it was 13 days, or no, not 13 days. It was 13 hours of travel, and I forgot that there's a stretch of open water where the Wi-Fi dropped out. And I wasn't able to complete all of the things I was working on. But in my head, by the time, 13 hours later and all of that, in my head, it was complete. I had set up many of the pieces, but I hadn't actually tied them all together. So that when you go to amylatta.com/marketing swaps, the page would show up and you'd be able to enter your email address. You'd be able to get. And I stand by this. The list all business owners need to have of like the stuff that we're doing or that we've been taught to do or that we see that are not great business practices and what you can do instead. I do stand by that. And I really apologize that I sent you all there and it didn't work. And not only that podcast episode was out for 6 days before I found out that it didn't work. So let's just have a moment here for acknowledging that if you ever think you have to achieve absolute perfection before you can be successful, no. You can fly 13 hours to Hawaii and think you've completed something because, in that time you should have, and the pieces were there, just without the internet, I didn't get it all connected. It's connected now. So please, Feminist Marketing Swaps, amylatta.com/marketing swaps. It is up. It is running. I done tested it myself. And for real, I know. Please let me know what I can do to regain your trust. That when I say, hey, you absolutely need to have this thing, that thing will actually be working when I send it to you. Goodness, my friends. This is, that's sometimes how the mind works. I'm also going to start another story here that is also going to be a really fun snippet into how my mind works. But I've been asked before, Amy, how do you come up with some of these like free trainings and some of the stuff that you come up with? You've got such great ideas. I'm telling you, the same mind that comes up with all of the great ideas also thinks that it put all the pieces together, even though they didn't. Just so you know, without you get the one thing with the other. So, you know those December to remember commercials, right? Like get a Lexus on your driveway with a big red bow on Christmas. Saturday Night Live has spoofed this, right? And December to Remember, like lots of car commercials have that trope. December to Remember, I believe, is specifically Lexus. And my brain was just kind of churning over Thanksgiving. I was just kind of like turning, thinking about decorating for Christmas. And I don't even know what made December to Remember pop into my brain, but it just kind of, again, the same brain that comes up with great ideas, loves to cogitate around great ideas, will also forget like to plug something in. I just started thinking about what would make this December, this last month of 2023, a December to remember. I mean, it came about for multiple reasons. It's no secret that my last 18 months from the spring of 2022 has been taken me places I never would have expected. We're still, as of the recording of this podcast episode, the last week of November, I am still do not have my original Facebook accounts. I just flat out started a new Facebook page. So we're going to put links to that in the show notes so that if you want to connect with me on my new Facebook profile, that you can. And just basically absolutely nothing. I can't think of anything that I thought was going to happen has actually happened. And all of the things I never could have imagined have happened instead. And, all the conversations, that right there, actually, it's really funny. That right there, all of the planning that we do, all of the plotting out, all of the, 90-day plans, 1-year plans, 3-year plans, 5-year plans, 10-year plans, we can plot all of that out, and we just never know when something can happen that can completely change the course of your life. I that sounds a little melodramatic, but it also happens all of the time. And your willingness to let life show you what it has to teach you. Also, when I was in Hawaii, I experienced oh my goodness, standing at 9,200 feet on Mauna Kea, which is considered the mountain on the Big Island that is considered the birth of all Hawaii and Hawaiians. It's technically the largest mountain, the tallest mountain on Earth. It's just that 2/3 of it is underwater. And the visitor center is at 9,200, and you go up there for stargazing. And I was like, yes, I'd love to see that. It was one of the most spiritual, and I have trouble putting words around. The Milky Way literally filled up the entire sky, and I felt like I was being wrapped around, like I was getting a hug from the Milky Way, that it was wrapping itself around me because it was wrapping around the entire sky. I mean, I have driven through the desert at night, and I've never experienced a sky like I experienced at 9,200 feet in Hawaii, standing on Mauna Kea. And we are but a speck of a speck of a speck of dust, and so insignificant that makes us actually the most significant, because all of that knowledge and essence and data and knowing that is throughout all of that sky that I stood before is in us. And I've said those words before. I've talked about them before, but I've never known it in my core the way that I did standing on that mountain. That we've been having all of these conversations inside Elevate Your Income, my marketing intensive, that, I lined out the marketing intensive to be, we're going to talk about this here and this here and this here. And we have broken down conversations about what it really means to be the thing you are known for and you believe so deeply in your core. The conversations in those spaces have been phenomenal. There's also the fact that Black Friday seemed to have started in early November. Like, was it just me? But like all of the emails and the overwhelm of it all, whether, it was selling wares or selling, the coach lists or the online business people that you get on their emails, people that I'd forgotten I was even on a list of, I'm getting emails from and all the hacks and the tricks and the buy my system, and it's only this much now through Monday, and there was a glitch in my website and now it's still only half off, my loss is your gain, and all that overused, we've heard it all before language, we've seen it all before, and tired, guys. I can't express enough how the juxtaposition of the conversations I've been having inside my rooms with my clients, and not even with paid clients, but just like I've been having so many more conversations with so many more people, standing on that mountain and really seeing. And by the way, I'm going to share those pictures. If you haven't seen them already, they are on my social media. If you want to see exactly, I have a picture of what the fucking Milky Way looked like standing on that mountain. And it will blow your damn mind when I tell you what I saw with my bare eyes. Like, I can't go from that to only 12 more hours for 60% off. The doors are closing at midnight tonight. Like, you know what I mean? The absurdity of it all hit me so hard. Again, do you remember what I said before about I never could have known? Back in the spring of 2022, I thought I was headed here in this direction, and I took a sharp left turn. But obviously I did. Obviously we were supposed to have. It's so clear. Sometimes the universe has to pound things over your head before you see them. Trust me, I also let go of the whole Facebook thing because I was like, oh, I am feeling resistance. We're going to talk a lot about resistance in this episode. I was feeling resistance and I finally leaned into it. And we're going to talk about when to lean into resistance and when to know when the resistance is telling us to go the opposite direction and when the resistance is telling us to lean in. But the resistance of trying to get Facebook to do what I want them to do, when it was like, oh, maybe I should just start an account from scratch all over again. Maybe this is the universe. I was literally telling me, you can make this what you want to be, right? And also, there was this, after years of ebbing and flowing, that dam finally burst for me of I just can't take this schlepping anymore, this hawking of wares anymore. Maybe it's my age, maybe it's that my business is 11 years old in January, but I long for deep conversation and I want more ease in my business and in my life. I don't want to do something just because I can tell there's a reason I don't want to, right? I don't want to well, I guess I better go down this path because I know this is where my growth is. I want to be able to change the circumstance sometimes. Sometimes I want to be able to just say, you know what? I don't want to have to change my thinking around everything. Sometimes I just want to change the circumstance and do something different. And not because I'm not committed and not because I'm afraid of doing hard things. In fact, it's the opposite. I'm so freaking committed. I'm so willing to do hard things. And I've done so many hard things. Maybe we don't have to quite do so many anymore. And I've been thinking a lot about, following a lot of, online, social media marketing gurus, what's working, what's not working, what's working for Instagram, what's working for Facebook, what's working for TikTok, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I also just kind of want to do what I do best in the lanes I'm most comfortable in and really lean into going all in on that, which honestly already been doing, and helping you figure out how you do that for you. It's not new language when I've been talking about doing what works for you, even if it doesn't look like what other people are doing. But the level of understanding of that, going that level deeper where you really believe that you can figure out what naturally flows best for you, can create what is most important for you. And two things that I noticed in a lot of this coaching I've been doing since Elevate Your Income started in September, and I'm going to call myself out on this. The first one shouldn't be a huge surprise, because even I've changed the language around this. But, there was this, so much of my coaching training was, if there is a thought of, I just don't want to do this, that was an indication that there was growth to be had there, right? Don't change the circumstance, change the thinking, right? No matter what we're talking about, the most growth, the most way that you're going to show and be an example of what is possible is your ability to mentally work through anything through pure thought change. And one of the ways that this showed up is when I would come across, or I would be talking with coaches who would say, I really don't know that I want a coaching business that makes multiple six figures, or I don't really want $1 million business. And being like, I wonder what their mental block is. I mean, first of all, what a super arrogant thing, right? But that must be a thought error. Let's coach them to see why, what has them playing small? Where are they not dreaming big enough? As if I should know what somebody else's dream should be, that their dream must be wrong if it's not making the most amount of money or having, the most whatever. It's like meeting somebody who's like, no, I don't really want to lose weight. Oh, well, I mean, don't you want to be stronger? Don't you want to feel better? Like, it's so arrogant to think that we should know that. And yet that was so, anytime I don't really want this thing that we as a society have decided everyone should want, must mean that there's a thought error. Must mean that they need coaching. As opposed to maybe not everybody needs to want all the same shit just because it's the traditional, patriarchal, capitalistic ideal, right? That probably shouldn't come as a huge surprise that I have let that go, that I have noticed how that became a default reaction in my coaching of why don't you want this ideal? Why don't you want this norm? While simultaneously championing, you should desire everything that you want. But when a client is in front or I was going to say companion is not the word that I mean, an associate or something along those lines. It's like, oh, tell me why, right? And it was always this idea that if you aren't dreaming big enough, if you don't want one of the preset patriarchal capitalist ideals, which is bullshit, right? Like, you get, that's bullshit. What if dreaming big enough is actually saying, I don't need that to validate myself and have an amazing, beautiful existence? Let me tell you, standing on a mountain at 90 to 100 feet and seeing the stars like that, all that stuff feels like a lot of bullshit. I'll tell you that right now. So I'm calling myself out on that and noticing that. And I'm also calling myself out on when a client says, I don't want to do this thing. And that training of, oh, that's the avenue of growth. There's resistance there, right? What resists persists, and how we've kind of used that, what resists persists, we've kind of used that against ourselves. Change your thoughts so you can learn to do the thing you don't want to do. That's real growth. So a perfect example of this is in the past couple of months in multiple groups, having a few clients who really, really wanted to do just long form content, and me coaching them of like, okay, but on Instagram, the going hacks, the going, lingo, the going things that you should be doing is to break up that long form content into smaller pieces. You're not having to actually create a ton of different stuff. You're just piecing it out. And this resistance of like, but I don't really want to do that. And that old training being there. of like, oh, let's find out why. Let's figure out what's the thought error in there that has them thinking that this is something that they want to do, as opposed to maybe they just don't want to do it. Maybe that's just not their vibe. Maybe long form content, prolific words, beautiful, eloquent language, and lots of it. Maybe that's perfect. And the funny thing is I have other clients who do that, and it's perfect for them. And they have other clients that would not be perfect for them. They would hate long form content. They want the short and the snippy. And by snippy, I don't mean, I don't know if I mean snippy or snappy, but like short snips, not snippy, like, biting back words. And everybody, like, this is that part of everybody is going to vibe towards something. And if that doesn't go with what their reigning thought process is of the month, the week, the year, then not wanting to do something different must mean that there's a thought error involved. And that's just, it's not true. It's not true. And sometimes the resistance is not a sign that you're avoiding something. The resistance is, this is a path that is creating more resistance and it's unnecessary. Where are we creating unnecessary resistance in our business? Do you see where you might be creating unnecessary resistance? There's a difference between, I really want to create small form content and I keep hitting all these obstacles. I keep not doing it. I keep distracting myself, and I need to lean into what I'm resisting there. Now that's resistance to lean into. I know I want to do this thing and I keep not doing it. So I'm resisting something, let's figure that out. That is very different than, that's not me. That doesn't vibe with me. That's not what I want to spend 10 to 20 hours a week talking about. That's not what comes more naturally to me. This is like telling somebody who really wants to only write and not get on video, like, they don't have to get on video, or vice versa, as opposed to coaching them out of that, just being like, great, let's figure out how to writing and not use video. Let's figure out how to make that work for you. Let's figure out how to make the thing that comes naturally to you. Let's figure out how to make that work for you. Let's choose a path of less resistance, not more resistance. And this is huge because, again, we have used if I'm resisting it, it's going to persist. So I need to lean in there. And I really think that ability to discern what you really need to lean into and what is a sign that this isn't for me. That right there is a huge skill to learn, to discern how to choose a path of least resistance that still allows you to grow. Not everything has to be a message. Not everything has to be a lesson, right? We can actually choose something a little bit simpler. Being an example of what is possible can look like not striving to be the number one at everything. Being an example of what is possible can look like something other than meeting one of those traditional patriarchal capitalistic goals. And listen, and oftentimes where we've just slapped on, like a cute dress and red pumps and we've called it feminist power, but you're still striving for a very narrow set of what is considered success. Sometimes being an example of what is possible can look as different as all the varied humans and has nothing to do with your body weight or your bank account. And it's not that those things are bad. It's when we highlight them as the only things that matter, as opposed to all of the buffet that life has to offer to us. And I'm exhausted by all of that. I want ease. I want a path of least resistance. I want less hacks and less tricks. I want more conversations. I want more state of the human condition conversations. And yes, I want marketing case studies and I want fun client celebrations. And I'm all in on elevating your income to be what you want and need it to be. All dreams are an example of what is possible. So that all was swirling in my head. Coming home from Hawaii the week of Thanksgiving. Yes, literally all of that. All of the conversations. All of this is swirling in my head when that December to Remember car commercial pops into my head. And it's these two things came together. Though, listen, if you actually want to drop a Lexus in my driveway on Christmas with a big red bow on it, I won't. I will not turn you away. But that's not what we're talking about. No, I wanted December to Remember where we have more of those deep conversations and talking to the humans, picking up what I'm throwing down, deciding if we want to work together or if we don't. And the love is there on both sides of the table, either way. Ease, no resistance, so much less angst and anxiety. For so many years, perpetuating that barf club is the sign that you're doing something great. Yes, doing new things, it's going to take you out of your comfort zone either way. But it can take you out of your comfort zone in an uplifting way and not in this angst-ridden way. There is a difference. I want that or your version of that for you. Let's figure out what that is. Let's make this a December to remember how to make your business a priority without it taking over your entire life. A December to remember that marketing and selling is really just having lots of conversations without the expectation that any one of them has to say yes or, oh my goodness, this is never going to work. Let's have a December to remember that you are a wealth of knowledge that at least 10 people right now would love to have access to. Let's make this a December to remember that you don't have to fix any part of you. Some of my deepest growth has actually been not insisting that I continue to grow, but actually accepting me as I am right here in this place. That I don't gotta fix any of this. And this right here can create a level of success I have never imagined because it's going to be my vision of what success really means. A December to remember that you are the perfect person to share what you know with others, and not because you've reached some mythical perfection place. In fact, the fact that you haven't reached some mythical perfection place is the reason you are the perfect person to share what you know with others. Let's make this a December to remember that the tips and the tricks that are going to work for you are the ones that you actually are going to do, the ones that vibe with how you naturally flow. Let's figure out what already works for you, what naturally motivates you, what are you more naturally adept at doing already. And it doesn't mean that there aren't pieces to get better at. That doesn't mean that there aren't pieces where you might want to grow, but let's make sure that growth is coming from a place of a true desire to learn and grow in that, and not just I really don't want to do it, so that must be the path I need to go down. Yeah, we're not doing that anymore. Let's make this December to remember that there is growth to be had in going with your natural flow. Let's make this December to remember that more than one thing can be true at the same time, right? That you can actually experience a high level of growth by not consistently pursuing growth at all costs. That's possible. So I created my own little December to remember. It's a free training, and I want you to join us. I want you in it with us. I've come up with about 5 or 6 different names. By the time this podcast episode drops, we'll have figured out what it is. But it's we're going to have more sales conversations, AKA less resistant sales, AKA marketing for slackers, AKA path of least resistant selling. I don't know which one you're going to end up seeing by the time that it's all live. We are starting December 1st in the Play More, Sell More group. It's absolutely free. So when this episode drops on December 5th, just, you can join us. There's not if you miss the first 4 days, you are not missing out on anything, because we're making this December to remember that you don't have to be all caught up, that you don't have to be in the perfect place, that you can absolutely create something, an entirely new experience at any time. The goal of the path of least resistance selling, or more sales conversations, or whatever the hell I call it, is going to be just that. Do you want to have more sales conversations in December? Then you want to participate in this December to remember. Because specifically, we're going to make it your goal to have a conversation every day in December. We're going to do this super simply. You're going to follow those actions that create clients. It was a free download a few episodes ago, which has just got categories of ideas that help spark conversations. You can focus on just one category. You can focus just on one action, but sparking conversations. And we're going to use my 30 days of offers prompts for the conversation topics. So if your conversation starter is as a post or an email or a podcast, you can choose from one of those prompts. Because it's not so much about making offers as much as it is making sure those offers are conversation invitations. Okay? And yes, we're going to do it in December because I want to learn to make business a priority without it letting it take over your life. So, we're going to talk about what does that look like? How can you make business a priority and it not have to occupy every minute of your day? How can you make offers to start conversations, to have more conversations, to increase engagement, to actually have more human-to-human contact in the month of December, and not necessarily have to be at work all of the time every day? We're going to be talking about how you can use scheduling tools to do that. We're going to talk about how you can use some AI to be able to accomplish that, to help you have conversations even if you are actually not working that day. Because it's possible. What would that look like for you? So you might have a goal to increase your reach, which means you want to pick actions that have you meeting new people to start new conversations. You might have a goal to increase engagement, which would mean you would want to pick actions where it's about having conversations with your current people. You get to decide which one of those is your focus. But either way, you're going to be picking actions to have more conversations. Is it going to be conversations with new people or conversations with existing people? There's no right or wrong. Some side benefits to doing this path to least resistance selling. I don't know. I've said it 3 times. Maybe that's what we're going to call it. I want you to notice where you feel resistance and start to ask, is this because you know you should do it, but you have a lot of weight around it? And you know that there's coaching to be had there? Or is that resistance because that's actually not really what you want to do? You actually don't want to do a bunch of face talky videos. So let's find another thing for you to do. You're actually more adept, or you prefer something else. So a side benefit is to noticing what your resistance in your business is and whether or not it's resistance for growth or resistance to let go of. Another side benefit is through the course of all these conversations, you're going to get to know way better why you and no one else, right? Noticing as you're writing, noticing as you're having these conversations with people, noticing when you're putting videos together or you're engaged in a one-on-one conversation with another human being, you're going to start being able to identify, what do you not agree with that everyone else seems to agree with? What are your controversial takes or your unique perspectives? You're going to start to really articulate the hard skills and the soft skills that you bring to your business from your background. You're going to start to notice, what do people experience when they're talking to you? Your vibe, your language, that feeling that you give off. Because when you're just engaged in conversation, human to human, you're not using that real truncated professional language that sounds like coach speak, because that's not maybe necessarily how you talk all of the time. When you're engaged in all these conversations, you're going to notice, what do you talk about that's different? What do you not talk about that everybody else does? So 2 huge side benefits to doing this December to Remember path of least resistance selling. The number one goal is going to be having more sales conversations, but you're going to learn so much more through the course of that. And I'm going to walk you through all of it. So you want to join us? It's in Play More, Sell More. That is my free Facebook group. Now that I've started another Facebook profile, I can actually interact with that Facebook group. I couldn't do that for like 7 weeks. Facebook.com/groups/Play More, Sell More, or just search for Play More, Sell More when you're on Facebook. Join me in that group. We've already started by the time this episode starts, but it's not a step 1, step 2, step 3. It's literally choose an action that starts a conversation and then start thinking ahead of how you can have some conversations or set up conversations with people, even if you are taking time off. So even if you're taking half the month off, how can you still create an environment where conversations can be happening and you don't have to be fully on the entire time? I'm going to be able to show you how we can do that. I can't wait to see what you create when you are here. All right? All right. And I will talk to you next week. Coach, it's time to sign your first free client, your first paid client, your next client, and to learn how to do it consistently and having a hell of a lot of fun along the way. This is exactly what you're going to do in Free to Paid Coach. It's the only program giving you step-by-step what to do to become a paid coach and step-by-step how to handle the roller coaster emotions that come with doing what you need to do to become a paid coach. If you know you can't not do this life coaching thing, but believing that you can do it, handling rejection, and remembering how to do all of those things shuts you down, the Free to Paid Coach community is waiting for you. Find everything that you're looking for inside. It's only $1,000, payments are available, and then you are in forever. Visit amylatta.com/FTPC to join us right now. See you inside. Let's get paid, Coach.
Thanks so much for listening to the Confident Coaches podcast. I invite you to learn more. Come visit me at amylatta.com. And until next week, let's go do epic stuff.